We're running? Yeah, we are running. Hello, world. Probably the most overused quote when it comes to golf. 1996, Tiger Woods. I was a 12-year-old boy when he turned pro, and yeah, he definitely said hello, world, in a major way. I don't know if this podcast will do exactly that, but hey, it's a golf podcast, so we're going to open it like Tiger Woods opened his career, and maybe we will have very similar trajectory. Welcome to On the Number. This is my podcast. Wow. I've been making YouTube videos for 3.5 years, and now it's time to transition to audio. I've been a public speaker for 5.5 years, so talking is easy for me. If you ask my wife, I probably talk far too much, so we figured, hey, when asked, I think it's time to do a podcast, and the amazing people at Short Par 4 are fueling this podcast. They're making this happen. I guess probably because they've spent enough time with me in the last couple of months. They're like, man, this guy doesn't shut up. We should give him a podcast. And that's what we're doing. We are starting a podcast on the number. Why, who and why should you listen? Why should you care? There's enough golf podcasts out there. And I agree with you. I don't listen to many of them. And I've heard some are great. And I've heard many are not so great. So hopefully I can come in there at the great end of things and give you a podcast that is entertaining, educational, and just a good time talking golf, talking the struggles of golf, shooting the shit, telling the stories, talking to players, and talking about this living on the number. That's why we've called it this, because on the number is something that a lot of tournament players, it's a saying a lot of tournament players will relate to and understand, professional golfers in particular, because unless you're a top guy where you're winning all the time, much like Tiger Woods, how I referenced at the start of this podcast, unless you're the top echelon in golf, you're going to spend some time looking at the number. And the number I'm talking about is the number to make a cut, the number to qualify, the number to get your card, and for pretty much anyone that's not playing like a federated tour, the number to getting paid. And my professional career is in my rear view now. I'm still playing a little bit, but I haven't played much in the last 2 years thanks to a broken arm. On my bachelor party, we can get into that story another time. But it was me and the pavement and a Lime scooter, and the pavement and the Lime scooter won. But my career, I spent it kind of on the number. My early part of my career, I played on the Canadian Tour, which is now the Mackenzie Tour. And with the exception of my first Q school, everything else was just like staring, like looking down the leaderboard, like, okay, what's the number? What's the cut line? Okay, I'm right there. I'm just a bit above it or just a bit below it. And then when I was playing mini tour golf, it was like maybe once every 6 weeks. I didn't have to worry. I was on song, and I was near the top of the leaderboard and I was getting paid. But every other time it was like I looked down the leaderboard, what's the number to getting paid, be it a 1-round event, be it a 2-round, 3-round. And there was many events that I played in my career where I finished just outside the number, missed getting paid by a stroke. When you're playing mini tour golf, that fucking sucks, because you're putting up money to play these events, and whether it's your own money or someone else's money, it's incredibly stressful. And when you finish, even if last place, that number is like $18 and you paid $200 to get in the event, it feels good. But if you finish one stroke outside of that and you made $0 to recoup towards what you paid to put into that event. So that's kind of this on the number idea, lifestyle, concept. And it's not just going to be me. In my career, I've been fortunate enough to travel and play all over with so many great players Some that you've heard about and some that you will never hear about and have never heard about. And it'll be cool to shoot the shit with those guys, bring them on, tell some stories about that lifestyle. Like when you're playing, when you're kind of, your career is on the number, on the cusp of getting paid, on the cusp of making a cut, of qualifying for whatever tour you're trying to qualify for, you're experiencing professional golf in a way that no one could have ever prepared you for, but also in a way that on TV we are not privy to. We watch the PGA Tour, we watch Inside the PGA Tour, or whatever the show is called now, and we see these cool lives. And with social media, obviously, we're further exposed to, you know, the top 50 players in the world and how they live and how fortunate they are and how their hard work, not taken away from anything that they've put in, their work ethic is incredible, their talent is amazing, but we see kind of like the fruit of their labors. We see the nice cars, the nice houses, and it's great, but the guys trying to get there or the ones that never got there, you don't see that. You see like the hotels we stay in, how we eat, like Taco Bell, $5 footlongs, $2 menu at Wendy's. Like, we're trying to save as much money, because my earlier example, if you paid $200 to play in a one-day event and you only made $18, well, if your expenses on top of the $200 were only like, you know, $12, not so bad. But if your expenses are $30, $40, $50, $60, $100 on top of that, well, then obviously that $18 doesn't go very far at all. So that's this kind of on the number. And we're going to talk about the PGA Tour. Yes, we can't forget the top dogs. But I want to kind of draw your attention to the players that maybe you aren't familiar with. The players who are kind of living on the number on the Korn Ferry or on the PGA Tour, on the European Tour. The ones that are fighting to get into the FedEx Cup playoffs. The ones who are fighting to get into the majors or whatever. The fighting to advance beyond the Korn Ferry. And obviously 2020, where do we begin? The year is a complete write-off, and the whole qualifying graduating system is not happening. So we obviously aren't talking about that, but it's September, and like the 2020-2021 season is starting, and that these fall events typically are where you see guys that know if they play well early in the year, they can really secure their card for the following season, typically. But what we may see, given this shortened season with COVID and how things are also different, we may see a lot more of the top guys playing these fall events, so it could make it a lot harder for these on the number type guys. But we're going to pay attention every week when we check in. I want to see how these guys are doing that are fighting around that 125 mark, and I want to draw your attention to these guys. And if we can talk to these guys. We can get to know these guys, and you can become fans of these players that maybe you've never heard about. And again, going back to social media, thankfully, we have an opportunity to get to know these players even more. Like when I was growing up, my favorite golfers, it was derived solely from how they played. I need some coffee. Whereas now, your favorites can be, yes, how good they are, how they play, but also, do they like the same music as you? Are they into the same food, or are their values the same as you? Like, that didn't exist when I was a teenager looking up to golfers. It wasn't until the mid-2000s where my favorite golfer always growing up was Aaron Baddeley. I know he's only a few years older than me, but he had a website, bads.com, and I got to know more of Aaron Baddeley. And Aaron Baddeley was a bit of a top guy for a little bit, but he was struggling for much of his career, going through highs and lows. And I tell you what, when Bads won, man, I was over the moon, because I was invested in this guy that I looked up to. And now as I transition to an adult and to another, as well as a player, I was really invested, and it was great to see a player like that do well, and then kind of struggled a bit, and then did well, and then won again. And if I can help shine some light on those players with this podcast, boom, we win, and that's kind of what we're looking for. But this first episode is just me, a little introduction to me. If you don't know me beyond what I've just shared, I do have a YouTube channel. Maybe you found this podcast from my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel started in 2017 in an effort to just share professional golf from my eyes. I'm a storyteller. I always have been. I turned pro in 2008 and wrote blogs in 2008 about it. I've always been a storyteller. And when I made YouTube videos in 2009. Sitting behind me, I have the very first camera that I made YouTube videos with, like a 3.2 megapixel Canon point and shoot. Those videos are completely gone. They were terrible. I had my emo haircut and they were awful, but I've just been a storyteller, and through making these YouTube videos, I've been able to help people learn more about professional golf, the costs and all of that kind of stuff, the travel, what goes into it, the work, and just how good players are now. And I'm getting older, and then I broke my arm, and my playing career kind of, like I said earlier, it's in the rearview mirror, and I'm okay with that. I know there's people that tell me I should retire on YouTube, but I don't think they're paying attention to anything. But I digress. We'll probably look into those cool people later on in the podcast. But then, strength to strength, just put the same work ethic into YouTube that I would put into my game. And here we are. And YouTube is helping pay the bills, and we're transitioning. We're making awesome relationships and meeting great players, working with tours, working with awesome companies like Short Par 4, and now we're doing a podcast with Short Par 4. And I've been talking about Short Par 4 earlier in the podcast and in my videos. And like I said, this team, this family, this crew at Short Par 4 has welcomed me with open arms, and it's been amazing. They're believing in me and my career, and as it kind of pivots off the golf course full-time and into this media space. But they are making this podcast happen, and they want to help you if you want to join the exclusive membership of Short Par 4. Because let's be honest, fellows, unless you're like someone like me who's a clothes nerd, shopping's... I take that back. I was like a clothes nerd in college. I loved to shop. But then when I turned pro and was fortunate enough to get clothing sent to me, my nerdism for clothing went to picking it online and just getting it sent to me. Thankfully. And since then, I don't love shopping as much as I used to. And I don't think I'm alone in that. Going to stores is not that fun. Let's be real. Shopping for golf clothes, I don't know how people do it anymore, to be honest. Do you do it in the pro shop? My dad was a club pro. Do you do it in the pro shop? I don't know. Do you go to the PGA Tour Superstore and do it, or you just do it online? But regardless, all these three options, they're not that fun. I think of my father-in-law as a perfect example. He does not like shopping for golf clothes. He golfs every week, but he doesn't like shopping for golf clothes. He would wear the same golf shirt probably for the first 2 years. I've known him. My wife, his daughter, would tease him about it. I think when I asked him for permission to marry his daughter, we went to the golf course and he was wearing that yellow shirt. Kelly knows it all too well. But we got him hooked up into the Short Par 4 membership for Father's Day of this year. And his style game has changed. My mother-in-law, she likes it. She appreciates it. Her husband looks better when he goes to golf, and she's not as embarrassed to go out with him after golf. I'm sorry, Bart. I hope he's going to listen to this, so there we go. But his style game, he was over here for dinner, and he's like, look at these awesome new shorts I got from Short Par 4, penguin shorts, navy blue with patterns. He's looking good. He's feeling good, and he's playing good. And that's what Short Par 4 is. They're like a style caddy. Playing professional golf with and without a caddy, I can tell you when you have a caddy, it helps. It helps so much when you don't have a caddy in like mini tour golf and you're just by yourself on your cart with a fucking loser beside you or no one beside you. It's not as cool as having a caddy. But Short Par 4, they're your style caddy. And like they've been hooking up my father-in-law's closet, my brother-in-law's closet, some of my friends' closets. They're texting, oh, what shirt did you get this month? Like, it's a brotherhood. That's the cool thing about Short Par 4. I'm loving being part of this brotherhood and hearing people and seeing people share on their Instagram what they're getting every month. It's a new brand every month. So you're learning new brands, new styles, new fits, new patterns. It's not just one note. You pick your styles, you pick your style, you pick your loudness, if you will, your fashion sense, and they just send you a box every month to help up your golf style game. Because let's be honest, gentlemen, wearing the same shit time and time again when you golf is embarrassing. People notice it. They begin to question why you're wearing the same shirt or shorts every time. And going to the store, we don't like that. So now we have somebody that's willing to put a box together and send it to your doorstep every month and hook you up. And these are golfers. These aren't just people that don't know anything about golf picking golf clothes. These are golfers picking golf clothes for you. So yes, Short Par 4, they are making this podcast happen, and they want to give you 20% off for listening to this podcast. So if you go to shortpar4.com and use my code AJ20, you're going to get 20% off your first box. So the fairway box, the executive box, it's up to you how much you want to spend every month. They're going to give you 20% off your first box. So check them out, shortpar4.com. Use the code AJ20. Yeah. Gentlemen and ladies, this is for you too. The one woman that's probably listening to this podcast right now, if you want your husband or your boyfriend or your son, your uncle, your nephew, your cousin, whatever it is, if you want them looking better on the golf course, what a gift is a Short Par 4 membership. So yes, there you go. I could sit here and talk about anything, like really, really anything, but we'll keep this first one a little shorter because I'm going to start doing some interviews. I've got some friends, some caddies, some PGA Tour players, some former PGA Tour players, just guys who have lived the life and have stories to tell about professional golf that hopefully will have you in stitches and will open your eyes to a side of professional golf that you did not realize existed. If my luggage or passport, I'd say if this walls could talk from my traveling, my first 3 years in the Canadian Tour, those are moments that were 12 years ago and they live in my mind like they were yesterday because these are some of the funniest moments that ever happened in my life. And it's because I was hanging around with guys that were just struggling to make ends meet week to week, trying to eat on the cheap, get a hotel on the cheap. Trust me, living on the number it's not for everybody, but it sure as shit makes for fun stories to listen to in a podcast. As for me, I'm going to keep doing this podcast probably every other week. We'll start with that because I'm still making 2 YouTube videos a week and I'm still trying to play some tournaments. And some tournaments I have coming up actually is the ultimate, like, it's a good reference to that kind of on the number, that player that's just almost there but never really, so close. Len Matisse has started a tour here in Jacksonville, so I'm going to play a couple of his events in the coming weeks at Jack's Beach and then Queens Harbor. But Len Matisse is one of those players who, he had a great PGA Tour career. I'm not taking away anything that he accomplished. Unbelievable golfer, great career. But he was that player that just, so close. Yes, you have that one Players Championship where he hit an absurd amount of club on 17 and airmailed the green by like 15 yards, and that cost him the Players. And then being Canadian, Len Matisse was who Mike Weir defeated in the playoff at the Masters in 2003. So Canadians, we know Len Matisse well, but if you think just on the other side of that number, if Len had hit the right club on 17, if Len had beat Mike in the playoff, man, what a difference a career would look like when all was said and done, and be a Hall of Fame player versus just a great PGA Tour player who's doing a lot of good for the game now. And I look forward, I've never met Len. I look forward to meeting him. Hopefully have him on the podcast because he's doing some good stuff here in Jacksonville, giving guys a place to play at a low cost, just giving us reps. And hopefully I can get my game back on his events, get to know Len, bring him on the podcast, and we can, man, I'm sure Len has some awesome stories he could tell us. So that's something to look forward to, both on my end when it comes to golf, but also guest side of things, who to expect on this podcast. If you're listening to this and you like this, please give it a good 5-star review. Subscribe in your podcast or your Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave a good review. Let me know what you want to hear, who you want to see. And yeah, like I said, subscribe. Thank you so much to Short Par 4 for letting this happen. I hope this wasn't too painful. I feel like I was just staring at a wall talking, but I have been told many a times that I could talk to a wall, and that's kind of what I did. I'm used to talking to a camera, but I'm purposely trying not to talk directly to the camera because then it just feels like a YouTube video. So, hope you like this. This is it. We're signing out. I don't have a sign off. I had an opening quote. I think I'm going to try to do an opening quote every episode, but I don't have a sign off. Signing off like a public speaking or at a YouTube video, it's very different. I don't have one here. This one was short and sweet. I hope you liked it. I hope it wasn't too painful. I hope you're coming back for the next one. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm Andrew Jensen, and we'll see you in the next episode of On the Number.